It was masochistic, but I couldn't help it. 30 minutes on the C2 rowing machine, followed by 30 minutes on the damn treadmill, every day for the last 9 months. The only thing that ever changed was the music. I didn't have a smartphone, but I did have an old MP3 player loaded with everything I could find to drown out my anger. I suppose I should say something to numb the pain, but the anger seemed to grow each day, pushing the pain away. Scenarios of revenge ran through my mind as heavy metal clouded the reality around me. Both sets of exercises could be performed automatically, without thinking or concentrating on what I was doing. Every day, for an hour, I was in a forced trance, mired in rage inspired by my wife's infidelity. After a quick shower at the gym, I went on a 3-mile walk to work. Driving would have been more practical, but I found that walking to calm down was therapeutic. Typically 58 minutes, a little more if the weather was bad. The pace wasn't fast, but good enough to keep my heart rate up a bit. After work, I walked the 2 miles home at a more leisurely pace. The weekend threw a bit of a wrench into things, but I filled the time by doing a little more housework than usual. I spent more time mowing, trimming, and edging. Little pieces of work I had been ignoring began to attract attention. Painting and caulking started to become important as a means of filling time. My MP3 player had become my best friend. I made good money working as a Volvo mechanic. I specialized in commercial diesel engines, and my certifications were always up to date. There was enough money to put my 2 daughters through college, but we used a second mortgage to offset college costs rather than saddle the girls with student loans. I guess you could say my marital problems were caused by music. My wife Robin prefers classical music, which I can't stand. For her sake, I tried to accept this for several years, but it didn't work out. Okay, we had different tastes in music, that alone shouldn't be enough to destroy a marriage. But she decided to take it further. She began connecting with others who had similar musical tastes, which led to joining and participating in a local music production and appreciation association. The group's program included concert tours, and she began attending as many as she could. Of course, she never even thought about asking me to accompany her. When walks began to turn into night walks, I felt the need to sort things out a little. Serge Gorski was a pianist. He taught at a local college and played with several local classical orchestras. He regularly traveled to perform in New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. My wife was infatuated with him. Although she maintained this for a long time, it was easy for me to determine that she was indeed his personal traveling companion. After collecting all the facts, I waited for the right moment and then hit her with it, "Honey, we need to talk." Of course, things didn't go as I expected. She didn't deny anything. She admitted everything and more or less said, "So what?" I'm not a very smart person. I had no reaction to her reaction. I expected remorse and regret, she delivered indifference and insolence. Our lives changed at that moment. At first, I was overcome with grief and sadness. The pain was excruciating, but I held back. I didn't say anything to my daughters or anyone else. Robin continued as if nothing had changed. She cooked, cleaned, and maintained the house just as she always had. The only real change was that I now slept in the guest room. Robin never worked, so she spent all her free time with friends. Although we still lived in the same house, we were more like brother and sister than husband and wife. Her trips and walks became more brazen. Photographs in newspapers and local magazines showed Serge and Robin as a couple. There was never any mention of me or her marriage. Over time, my pain gradually turned into anger, and the anger grew to such an extent that I found it difficult to control. I didn't drink. I turned to the gym. I lost 46 pounds. I was in better shape than ever. I got off my blood pressure and cholesterol medications. At home, I only ate at dinner time, easily adapting to whatever Robin was cooking. For every pound I lost, I gained 10 pounds of bitterness. I was becoming a hateful, pathetic bastard. Even my friends and work colleagues started avoiding me. And then I met Seymour. Seymour had been going to the gym regularly for about 2 months before I even spoke to him. During training, I more or less kept to myself and socialized very little. Some of us nodded casually at each other or occasionally exchanged quick fist bumps. Seymour didn't interfere. Sometimes I caught him talking to himself. When you have headphones on, you don't realize you're singing along to songs or talking out loud. One day, he noticed me smiling while he was thinking, and from then on, we had an easy, relaxed relationship. We started working out on the treadmill together, and then I gradually taught him how to use the rowing machine. He was just as focused on training as I was, and I quickly discovered that we had the same motivation. We started drinking coffee after workouts, and that led to us having lunch every now and then. Having Seymour as a friend made things a lot easier. Finally, I had someone to sympathize with. I could talk it out. However, this did not soften the situation but simply angered me even more. Seymour didn't run on a treadmill, he didn't want to run at all. Physically he could run, but mentally he chose not to. His wife Tricia was an avid triathlete. She got into fitness about 5 years ago, and that's the direction she took. She spent as much time as possible cycling, swimming, and running. The worst part was that she wasn't doing it alone. There were marathons and Ironman competitions happening all the time, and she participated in them as much as she could. Of course, Seymour was never invited. Gene Dickens was a world-class Ironman triathlete and was happy to offer his escort services to Tricia. Seymour had no trouble finding that they shared transportation, hotel accommodations, meals, and business meetings. He confronted his wife. She told him to deal with it. Things came to a head one evening after work when Seymour and I were sharing ribs. Robin was in Washington with Serge, and Tricia was in Hawaii at Ironman Kona with Gene Dickens. The ribs would have tasted better with cold beer, but we stuck to unsweetened tea. You know, John, we're pathetic idiots. Seymour wasn't laughing when he said this. He just shook his head and looked a little gloomy. Damn it, Seymour, I'm not a cuckold. Oh really? What do you call two guys who know their wives are cheating on them and accept it? I paused for a moment, thinking about what he said. I casually called the waitress over. Bring us a pair of long necks, please. Seymour, I'm not a cuckold. I won't be a cuckold. Prove it, John. We're both pathetic idiots who bury our misery by training until it hurts. Do your daughters know what's going on? When was the last time you talked to them? Does your wife talk to your daughters? Thank God I don't have kids to worry about. I picked up the cold Ewingling. What would you recommend? Seymour just shrugged and took another rib. I started the weekend as usual, work in the garden. I had no idea what the timetable was for Robin's return, and I didn't care. I assumed she would stay for the weekend. After a light lunch, I met Seymour at the gym. Tricia won't be back for another 5 days. She told Seymour that triathletes need to do decompression or something like that before airlines will allow them to fly. He knew it was mostly nonsense, but he didn't want to call her about it. We never finished the session. I'm over it, damn it. I just can't and won't do this anymore. Seymour grabbed a towel and headed into the shower. Before I finished rowing, he got dressed and ran out the door. He was right. I knew we had to do something. I spent all day Sunday planning. I would come up with ideas and immediately find a reason to abandon them. The best idea was to just take everything and disappear, but I felt that would leave me with a big hole. I needed some kind of revenge, but against whom? It had to be all of them. I had to deal with 4 different people. I could never physically harm Robin, it just wasn't in my nature. I was pretty sure Seymour felt the same way about Tricia. However, these 2 guys were a different story. Killing was out of the question, but how could you cause them meaningful pain? Suddenly everything became clear. I quickly went to the garage and found what I needed, a ball-peen hammer. Robin returned home on Sunday evening, beaming. She unpacked, took a shower, and all that, but didn't tell me what she thought about the weekend. I didn't bring it up. After she went to bed, I stayed to watch TV. John, I will not do it. You are crazy. Crazy. I don't care how bad it is, I'm not going to kill anyone. No, no, Seymour, you're not listening. We're not going to kill anyone. We're just going to slow them down a little bit. It doesn't sound right. I saw this movie, Strangers on a Train. William Bendix and that other guy turned out to be murderers. What you're suggesting is the same. I will not do it, John. It was Farley Granger, not William Bendix. And we're not going to kill anyone. Why are we going to do this? And what will it accomplish? Fine, Seymour. Why is your wife so attracted to this guy? What does he have that you don't, that makes her want him? You know damn well what it is. He's a world-class athlete. I can't compete with him. I'm just a loader jockey, and an overweight one at that. So he's using his status as a world-class athlete to seduce and steal your wife. Do you think this is fair? No, Seymour. This guy thinks he's so much better than anyone else that he can take and use any woman he wants. This is the ultimate disrespect, and you don't want to hurt him? He drained you, and you're just going to let him get away with it. John, I have no way of resisting him. In fact, the matter is you don't have to. I will do it. And what's the compromise? Well, there's a world-famous virtuoso pianist who may need professional chiropractic care on his fingers. Can you handle this? It depends on the situation. Should I use a ball-peen hammer? Seymour, use whatever damn thing you want. So we had an agreement. Seymour was still a little unsure about this, so I said that I would take care of Jean first, and then it would be easier for him to look after Serge. We spent another 2 hours over the ribs, exchanging all the personal information we had with each other. There were many holes in our plan. The problem was that none of us had any idea what we were doing or how to do it. Jean was the biggest challenge because of his physical attributes. I almost decided that I would need some kind of equalizer. Now that there was a new special project in my life, I completely forgot about my wife and her lover. I took 10 days leave. I focused on Gene Dickens. It was much more difficult than I expected. He worked as an insurance adjuster from 9 to 5, but the rest of the time his days were much more challenging. Sometimes he would ride his bike for hours when he could find the time. He jogged most mornings and spent 3 evenings a week at the local YMCA swimming until the pool closed. On days when it rained, he trained at the local gym. Of course, he met with Tricia at his apartment 2 or 3 times a week. While I was watching Jean, Seymour was checking on Serge. We met regularly at the gym and worked out, but we didn't discuss how things were going. We didn't even have each other's phone numbers. This was part of the plan. The only connection we had was that we both went to the same gym. Time passed, and I needed to strengthen something. He used different bike routes all the time. He never ran the same route consistently. The best I could come up with was the YMCA. After his swim practice, he parked his car at the back of the building. I spent a lot of time looking for CCTV cameras. I found a few around the front and side of the building but never saw one in the back. I quietly picked up a stun gun on Craigslist but wasn't sure if it would work or how to test it. It was a risk I had to take, at least it came with instructions. Feeling a little frisky, I bought a balaclava for $10. We spent about 30 minutes on the treadmill chatting about minor things when I felt it was time to get serious. Seymour, I think you need to take a 10-day vacation as soon as possible. I don't want to know where you're going, but you need to tell me the dates. Wherever you go, use your credit cards a lot. By the time we had finished another 30 minutes on the Concept 2 rower, Seymour was beaming. Now I needed to figure out where I was going to go. It was raining, a slow rain that was enough to get everything wet. It was about 10 o'clock, and any minute now Gene Dickens would walk through the back door of the YMCA. Gene's Outback was the only car left in the backyard. I checked again and still couldn't find any CCTV cameras. Just in case, I put on the balaclava. He got angry when he saw a flat tire. The stun gun worked exactly as advertised, and within 5 minutes I was on my way home. It didn't make the morning paper, but there was a short story on the evening news about a local man who had been attacked and wounded behind the YMCA the night before. Efforts are being made to install CCTV cameras in the area to prevent further incidents. There was no word on what injuries he received. They had no suspects or motives. I had no idea where Seymour was or when he would return. A ball-peen hammer, a stun gun, and a balaclava were thrown into 3 different rubbish bins in the city centre. My boss at work wasn't happy when I told him I was going to Volvo Penta training courses in Orlando for 3 weeks. He could not understand how a course on marine engines would benefit him. I told him I would pay for the course and use more of my accrued vacation time. He still wasn't happy. I left a note in Seymour's locker in the gym saying I would be out of town until the end of June. Robin, I need to go to Orlando for 3 weeks of training. Do you want to come with me, or would you rather stay home and relax? John, summer concert season is in full swing. You know how much I love park events. I'd really rather stay here. You'll be spending most of your time in some class anyway, won't you? Yes, it's a little stuffy there in summer. I understand why you don't want to go, but I felt I had to ask. Thank you, dear. I appreciate the offer, but I'd probably be more comfortable here. Maybe we can consider a short trip later in the summer, maybe a weekend in New England or something like that. Of course, this conversation went exactly as I expected. Now for the next stage of the plan. There was no further news about Jean Dickens. I left at dawn on Saturday and planned to get to Orlando in 2 days, including a stop at the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga. We must set our priorities clearly. Luckily, the school had long-term rental agreements that included light kitchen supplies. I didn't want to eat out every day. I called Robin and told her I had arrived safely. The hometown newspaper charged $1 a month if you wanted to read the paper online. I took care of this as soon as I got settled. Starting tomorrow, I will carefully check all the news from home, paying special attention to police reports. I really wanted to know if Seymour would keep his part of the agreement. I also wanted to know if he had received any inquiries from the police regarding the Dickens incident. A mile away was the Planet Fitness Club. I needed to use my guest privilege card. The first week of my vacation was boring. The second week was interesting. And the third week was great. Of course, I don't mean school preparation, everything was at the highest level. I read the entire newspaper every day, looking for something interesting. There was a concert at the site of the Battle of Brandywine organized by my wife's lover. I'm sure she enjoyed this little walk. Late the next week, a front-page story appeared about a horrific attack on Serge Gorski, a local university professor and director of a symphony orchestra. The police seemed to consider this some sort of professional vendetta, as the only damage he suffered was to both of his arms. Comparisons were made with the recent attack on Jean Dickens, but they really couldn't connect the 2 events. There were no suspects at this time. I spent the rest of the evening with a 6-pack of black and tan, trying to figure out where, when, and how Seymour did it. I didn't really want to know, but it was fun to think about. The next morning, one of the administrators at the Volvo Penta school notified me that I had received a call from an official from Pennsylvania confirming that I was indeed attending school and had not missed a single scheduled class. I wouldn't expect anything less. I was curious when my wife would tell me about this. I hadn't heard anything from her for several days. In preparation for her phone call, I went out and bought another 6-pack. The call never came. The last week of training was the best. We had half a day of interviews with potential employers. I didn't expect this. Any suggestion would be good for me. My age, experience, and willingness to move gave me some advantage over most other students. I got the offer I wanted, and the choice was easy. On my way home, I decided to make a quick stop to check it out. No follow-up article about any of the mysterious attacks ever appeared in the newspaper. Robin never called again. The Pedo Bay Marina was actually in Alabama, but you could see Florida across the water. Bill Morgan really wanted to show me his pride and joy. In addition to capital and renovation work, they also had a large multi-level warehouse. There were half a dozen liveaboard boats mixed in at the docks. The crowning glory was a small mobile home at the back of the property that he said I could use for free. I asked him to tell me more about the vault, which he said the snowbirds really liked. After explaining the operation, he jokingly asked me if I had any experience with forklifts. I immediately thought of Seymour. Arriving home was a little unpleasant. My loving wife quickly hugged me and kissed me on the cheek. I made several attempts to make some light conversation, but Robin never responded with anything more than light chatter. She didn't mention Serge at all. I didn't insist but smiled to myself. I showered, changed, and we enjoyed a light meal. I was gone for 25 days, and it seemed like I had never left. In the morning, I was looking forward to a good workout at the gym.